that'll all be available, like I said, after this webinar. So a couple of things. One is for anybody who's been following PhotoRadar for the last few years, this has taken a number of twists and turns. We finally got, I think, things straightened out this last session. So all cities in the state have now got authority for speed photo radar, which is great for all of the public safety values that it can potentially bring to your communities. So what we wanted to do today was give you essentially a snapshot of what photo speed radar looks like in Oregon. And I've got Grace Wong, who's going to start things out from Beaverton. I'll let Grace introduce herself as she gets started here in a minute or two. She'll give you, again, history and background, and then we'll get into both City of Portland and City of Tigard in terms of their experience. It's a little bit different for both. So Portland has the most experience of anybody on speed photo radar because they were the first to be able to get it in place in their community a number of years ago and have had some success. But they've also learned a lot of things along the way. And hopefully some of that insight is going to help you out in terms of your evaluation. The other piece that I thought was important to bring into this was really photo red light, because that is a technology that's been around. There's a number of communities that have got that in place. And along with that technology, with photo red light, you have the ability for speed citations as well. So we have Lieutenant Lee Erickson from Tigard, who's going to be walking us through that. And again, if I probably missed it, but Steve Hoyt Macbeth is here from City of Portland to provide their experience as well. So with that, why don't we go ahead and start with Grace. Grace, go ahead and introduce yourself, and I will do a share screen here so everybody can see your presentation, and just tell me to advance and I'll just move it through the sequence.
Got it, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Grace Wong and I work as an assistant city attorney for the city of Beaverton, and I assist the Beaverton Police Department in their photo enforcement program ever since I started with them in 2016. And I have helped advise them on the contracting process for photo enforcement vendors, issues that have arisen with those vendors, and the state statutes applicable to photo red light and photo radar. And as Jim mentioned, there's been some recent changes. So that's what my presentation is really going to focus on. And with that, I think next slide. So I must give this disclaimer. As the lawyer for the city of Beaverton, I have to tell you that these materials and the accompanying presentation provide a general overview of the state statutes relating to photo red light and photo radar, and the high level process for creating or establishing a photo enforcement program, but should not be construed as legal advice. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
So yeah.
There we go.
Here I have just the high-level steps of what you should think about when thinking whether to establish a photo enforcement program. Next slide. The first step really is to decide feasibility. I'm sure you've had complaints about certain intersections and areas frequently. So really the next step is to collect data about each location. You know, who owns this road? Is it a city road or a county road? Is it an ODOT road? All of this is really important to determine whether they need to be involved in this process. Is it an intersection or a non-intersection? Because again, it makes a difference as to which ORS you might be thinking about. And after you collect the data about where it might be, you should conduct traffic safety studies to really get the data behind each intersection or non-intersection to finalize where you want to place these cameras. And then next slide, please. So you think about your locations, and then you also think about what that could mean for your city and the possible changes to city operations. What do I mean by that? It means really estimating the amount of police staffing you would need to run this program. If you have a municipal court, would that mean adding days or hours of operation to the muni court to process the traffic trials that would occur? And also, if you plan to have tickets, how are they going to be prosecuted if they're gonna hire a lawyer for their traffic ticket? Is it going to be done in-house with a local city attorney, or are you going to have to contract out? And last piece there about creating a plan on how to coordinate internally really relates to how are you going to communicate at a high level and transfer documents from one department to the other for photo radar and photo red light. Next slide, please. So the next step is really to brush up on the relevant ORS. ORS Chapter 810 provides the bulk of what you need to know about photo red light and photo radar. And then you also need to look at recent legislation. Last year in 2023, that's House Bill 2095. And as Jim mentioned, it permits all cities now to use photo radar and eliminates the time limits that used to be there. And then in 2024, they removed the requirement of a marked police vehicle and a use of a uniformed police officer at the site and other technical fixes. Next slide, please. So ORS 810-434 provides the statutory authority for photo red light and photo speed. That has been there for a while, and it really allows for 2 traffic violations to be enforced using this ORS, which is running a red light and speeding, of 11 miles per hour or more over the normal speed limit. The general requirements before you use this ORS is that you have a warning period, or really a public information campaign letting people know that you are now going to be doing this. You also need to have a biannual legislative report sent to the Legislative Assembly to report on what has happened in the 2 years for your photo enforcement program using photo red light and photo speed. And these cameras have to be at a traffic control device, which makes sense because the permitted traffic violation, again, when it first started, was running a red light. Next slide, please. So these, I'm not going to read it to you, are the 6 requirements before you can issue red light citations. And it's very important that you meet these requirements before issuing red light citations, because defendants could contest that in their traffic trials. So you need to make sure your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed before you start issuing red light citations under this ORS. Next slide, please. And similar thing for photo red light speeding. And these are the requirements before you can issue speeding citations. Note that they are not the same as the one that is in the former slide. So just be aware and read each statute very carefully when you're thinking about starting the photo enforcement program. Next slide, please. So photo radar, that's the one that has had the most changes. You need to really look at House Bill 4109 to figure out which ORS you need to follow. And now the requirements before you can issue photo radar citations are the 3 bullet points identified in the slide. You have a sign posted with info about the current rate of speed between 100 and 400 yards before the photo radar unit. A police officer or duly authorized traffic enforcement agent has reviewed the photographic evidence, and a police officer has signed and issued the citation. But in Portland, a duly authorized traffic enforcement agent may sign and issue the citation instead. Next slide, please. So what does that mean? A duly authorized traffic enforcement agent is employed, appointed, and duly sworn in by the governing body of that city. It has completed all necessary technical, administrative, and other training to review photographs and issue citations. And lastly, is not a police officer. Next slide, please. So yeah, before all the changes in the last 2 legislative sessions, there was actually a very clear delineation between photo radar and photo red light. Photo radar was only authorized for certain cities versus photo red light, which allowed all cities. The type of system really was the marked police vehicle, the speed vans, so to speak, versus the photo red light, which was really fixed cameras on light poles at intersections. the location of issuers, you had a uniformed police officer on site in those speed vans versus the photo red light where there was no one on site. And then there was only a 4-hour time limit for photo radar as opposed to photo red light, which allowed for 24/7 enforcement. Next slide, please. And now there's a slight blurring between the two because photo radar is allowed for all cities. It's not specified the types of systems you can use. It does include fixed cameras on poles. It does only enforce speed versus photo red light, which has the red light and speed options. You like photo red light, photo radar no longer has the requirement for a marked police vehicle and uniformed police officer on site. So both of them don't require that. And then again, there's no longer that 4-hour time limit. So it starts looking a lot similar. The biggest difference really is that photo radar, I think, can be put now in not at intersections. Next slide, please. All right, so you have your locations. You have done your brushing up of your ORS. Now it's really to formally establish your locations. If your location is going to be using photo radar that's not in a school zone or in a residential zone, you'll need to make a formal finding that traffic safety is an issue at those locations. Typically that's done by resolution, but whatever is your process in your city, you'll just need to make that clearly that is your governing body making that finding that speeding has a negative impact. You'll also remember that traffic study I mentioned earlier. It would be nice to also include data backing up the statement that traffic safety is an issue so that you have clear documentation as to why traffic safety is an issue at those locations. Next slide, please. So now it's time to hire your vendor. There's really two options. Piggybacking is the common terminology used, and that's the permissive cooperative procurement, in which you can look at another agency's contract and determine whether they allow for other agencies to use their contract. Look closely at who is the vendor, the costs for those contracts, the term of the contract. Are there any performance standards listed in those contracts? And what are the penalty fees for non-compliance of those standards? And if you want to go through piggybacking, it does allow for a quicker process, but you may decide instead to do your own RFP for photo enforcement. Next slide. If you do that, the benefit is that you can set your own penalty fees if it's below your established performance standards. You can set your own payment options, whether it's a monthly fee that's set or a per issued citation or a per paid option. And you can really negotiate with the vendor what services are included in those and payment options, like expert witnesses, what is downtime and relocation costs. You also get to have your own interview with the vendors to look behind their portals and clarify any information they provide in your proposals. So it's really looking to your own agency and seeing what makes the most sense, whether it's going for a piggybacking option for another agency or to really create your own RFP and contract for these services. Next step, please. Next slide, please. And then after the contract is signed, you figure out how to implement the photo enforcement program. You'll need to work with the vendor to create and finalize the business rules because again, the contract is going to go talk about the high level overview of how the process works. But these business rules are really the day-to-day procedures that your officers will be following and how your vendor will understand to process those citations with the city. So it's very important to set them at the start. Next, you'll have to install the system, place the equipment on the road, customize your data fields in the back end with your IT folks, create your interface between the vendor system and your police records management system. You'll need to train your police officers or traffic enforcement agents on how to use the vendor system. You'll need to install the signs. Remember, that's one of the requirements before you can start issuing citations. If you haven't had a photo enforcement program before, you'll need to start an awareness campaign to let your residents and visitors know that there is now photo enforcement that's occurring in your cities. Best practice is to also, when you first start, issue only warnings for a certain period instead of citations, letting people know that this is really occurring. And last but not least is to correct issues, because there will be issues with your vendors. There will be mailing problems. There will be issues on cameras not working. And the takeaway here is really to communicate with your vendor frequently, because early and frequent communication with your vendor will help avoid any blowups and escalation of issues. And with that, that's really the end of my presentation. And I'll hand it off to the other two to talk about their specific programs. Thank you very much. Jim, I think you're muted.
Ding. Yeah, been doing this for how many years now? Sorry. Anyway, bottom line, thank you very much, Grace. Appreciate it. We'll take questions at the end of this process, so we can give each of our panel members a chance to make a presentation. And again, we are recording this, so we'll be able to put this out in content for the weekly bulletin, and then direct email distribution to mayors and city managers for additional. So with that, I'd like to bring Steve Hoyt Macbeth with the City of Portland on, and we'll move to his presentation.
Well, thank you, Jim, for having the City of Portland here with the League and all of these cities, and to share our experience along with Lieutenant Erickson and Grace's excellent presentation. It was very thorough, just a really wonderful resource for everybody. That slide deck is going to be very helpful for everyone. As Jim alluded to, the City of Portland has been at automatic traffic enforcement for a while. We're coming up near on 30 years that we've been doing it in the City of Portland. The focus of my presentation is going to be more on the more recent period. And I must note, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself, Steve Hoyt Macbeth. I'm the Speed Safety Camera Program Manager. We've been doing it for 30 years. I've been in this position for about 6 weeks, although I've worked adjacent to Vision Zero and our active transportation safety team for about 17 years. Next slide, please, Jim. So I wanted to talk a bit about kind of the policy grounding, or actually the why of why we do photo enforcement in the City of Portland, and then kind of talk a bit about our program and our performance and some of the issues, and then try to leave you with some challenges to consider and really kind of reiterate some of the things, though not as specifically as Grace did. Next slide, please. So we have done, I mean, I want to note that if I had to give a high level takeaway, I would say automated enforcement cameras are effective. They are not a solution. We've been doing it for almost 30 years in Portland, and last year, unfortunately, was the highest level of traffic deaths that we saw on our public right-of-way in over 30 years. We designate a high crash network, which represents just 8% of the roadways in our city, but has always been a disproportionate number of our serious crashes and deaths. And last year, 74% of our deaths happened on our high crash network. At least 40 people died in crashes where excessive speed was a factor. And our signalized intersections, in recent times, our signalized intersections represented 34% of all fatal and serious crashes, with pedestrians at those signalized intersections representing 51% of the traffic fatalities or serious incidences of crashes at those locations. So we have something that we really need to solve for. Next slide, please, Jim. And then photo enforcement is a piece of our Vision Zero and kind of our safe systems approach at the City of Portland. A primary piece of this is designing safe streets to protect human lives. And I'll speak to this a little bit more in our limitations, but we feel a responsibility to make sure that we are designing a street that will then cue to our operators in the right-of-way to drive at a safe speed. Our pedestrians, which are our most vulnerable road user, are really our design goal when we are designing and redesigning our streets, And with help from authority from the legislature, we've taken a very systematic approach to reducing the maximum speed limit throughout our cities, not just on our high crash network, although the high crash network has been a focus. And then also to try to create a culture of shared responsibility Within that, our automated enforcement camera program is a part of that accountability tool for people. Next slide, please. Although I did speak a bit to our limitations, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later in the presentation, where we have placed, whether it be at a signalized intersection or at a fixed speed location or a mobile location, we have seen consistently a reduction in both injuries and in speeding where we have implemented these solutions. You can see the numbers in terms of the injuries. I'll note that we speak a lot about serious crashes and deaths because of the data set. This injury number includes all severities of injuries. At our fixed speed camera location, and I'll just note and apologize that we at the City of Portland use fixed speed and speed safety camera interchangeably. So my apologies for any confusion that creates. We've seen a 71% decrease last year in the speed of the number of people speeding at posted speed limits where we have our fixed speed cameras, and most importantly, a 94% decrease in what we refer to as high-end speeders, those people speeding at 10 miles an hour or more over the posted speed limit. Next slide, please. We've surveyed the public a number of times and are actually working on a survey right now to survey them again. But the public, we clearly have a problem. We have a tool that works, and thankfully we have a public that has shown strong support for using cameras at our high crash streets. And so this is just a reflection of that. We've done both internally done survey work, and I also use DHM, a very respected public affairs company. Next slide, please. And then we have three main tools that we use that Grace referred to all of them in her excellent presentation. The one we've had the most experience with is our mobile speed vans. And Grace mentioned this, but I'll just say that is where a uniformed police officer is in the van, and we are limited to 4 hours in any one location to use that. That is as the mobile would reflect, this is the most flexible tool that our police bureau uses, and we use at the most variety of locations. And then the other two, which are more fixed in terms of like where they're applied, is that photo red light, which, as Grace referred to, has actually been in Portland since 2022, been replaced by our intersection safety cameras that both are, and Jim referred to this as well, are both enforcing compliance with the signalized light and with speed. And then our fixed speed camera one, which is the most recent tool that we've been using. Next slide, please. And then this is just a breakdown, this next slide, of kind of how that kind of pans out. The image on the right side of the screen is our high crash network. We have an even number of speed safety cameras or fixed speed cameras and intersection cameras, 20 of each, and then 2 photo radar vans. The numbers have changed from year to year, and we are continuing to grow the number of cameras that are in our network. But in average over 21 and 22, I apologize for the delay in the data collection, is about 70,000 cases per year that we have. In terms of citing, we really ground where we cite these in data, and then feasibility, which is just, we'll get to in a bit, and then equity. Most, unfortunately, a disproportionate amount of our high crash network is in our high equity areas. Pretty much any reflection in terms of income, race, ethnicity, underrepresented communities are disproportionately reflected in as traffic victims, which we both want to make sure we are addressing, but also want to be sensitive to concerns of over-policing in these neighborhoods. And then lastly, I referred to this, but we in 2025 plan to increase the number of cameras by 20 more speed safety cameras through a new RFP where we'll be adding an additional vendor. Next slide, please, Jim. And then I'll get to this a little bit later if I have time, but just in terms of the way the case files kind of break down, about 2/3 of the cases filed are in by our fixed speed camera program. Next slide, please. And then we manage this program collaboratively with our Portland Police Bureau. There's a couple main reasons for this. One is just a shared value that we have about having a safe community and making sure that our right-of-way is a safe place for people to go about their business, whether that be walking, taking transit as a passenger or driving. And also that there is as Grace alluded to, there is a management footprint or just an obligation in terms of managing these programs. And so one of the ways that we have been able to operate this program is through shared management of the program. Next year, we plan to actually have PBOT duly authorized agents that, as Grace referred to, are not police officers be issuing citations for our fixed speed cameras. Our police bureau will continue with our intersection safety cameras. And this is really not just kind of like the reason for this is really just capacity of our police bureau. And so we want to increase the number of cameras, and to do that, we need to create more capacity for issuing citations. Next slide, please. And then I just kind of broke this down in terms of our public outreach. Grace did a really nice job of kind of talking about what you would do is when you were setting up a program. This is more about what we do now when we have new cameras coming in, which is really the first part is really kind of similar to what you would do through any public works program in terms of direct mailings and notices. Documentation and transparency is very important to us at PBOT and at the city. So we have a Vision Zero dashboard where we publish the data every year in terms of how we are doing and how the camera program is doing. And then we have our biennial legislative reports that are posted there that speak in pretty significant detail about our program. And then we use social media as well to try to inform people about the program and to talk about it, where we're doing well and where we're could do better. Next slide, please. And then I wanted to speak to some of the challenges in trying to cite the cameras. So we know very well where crashes are happening and where we need to make implementations. Actually, then being able to put a camera at that location can oftentimes become a challenge, as all of you on this call are very aware of. There's a lot of competing interest in our public right-of-way and a lot of stuff that we have placed in our right-of-way or have let others place in our right-of-way. And so there's just a lot of concerns and things that we need to balance with that. One of them is making sure that we're not impeding the pedestrian right-of-way where we place these cameras. We love trees in the city of Portland, but then trees can be something that can create a sightline issue. There's a lot of poles. We don't own all the poles, and so if the place we want to site something is not our pole, that can be more challenging. I really encourage any of the jurisdictions that are considering adding a vendor to think about the needs of that vendor in terms of electricity. I'll toot Beaverton's horn for them. They've just signed a contract with a vendor who has a solution that uses a battery system and does not need to tap into the public right away or into the grid to be able to power the system. That is a big challenge for us in the city of Portland. And then there's this issue of just the brightness of the flash with people who may live near or work near a location where that flash can actually really go into their living space or their workspace and be a challenge. And lastly, unfortunately, the public right-of-way has not been the most hospitable place for things that we place in the right-of-way. And we have and I don't think Portland's alone, but we've had problems with vandalism of these vehicles running into them. And more recently, we had an individual shoot at a number of our cameras. Thankfully, that person was arrested, but still just that once you put it there, you're, as Grace alluded to more broadly, once you've actually placed the camera, your work is not done, and that camera will need maintenance just like any asset in the right of way. Next slide, please. And then this is just more about, I think we think that this is an important tool at the city of Portland, automated enforcement, but there are limitations. And I've spoken to some of these already, but we just really feel that this is a tool that is a tool as a part of a larger strategy of redesigning our streets, both in terms of what that speed is and what design cues and abilities that the design of that street is allowing. We have a very large city, and we just cannot put a camera every place that there might be an effect. And once somebody passes a speed camera, how long they will maintain that speed, the safe speed they're driving, is really something that hasn't been researched a ton, and something that we're considering. And we've had a program for 30 years, and we still have challenges with traffic safety on our streets. And I believe, I'm sorry, I'm going to go ahead and just Jim, if you could just very quickly go through the next couple of slides. I'm just going to not speak to these broadly, and I'll just say that we have on our speed cases, about a 64% conviction rate. innocence is the main reason that those dismissals happen, and that we have at Portland, and I would encourage other jurisdictions to consider, we have a safety class for first-time offenders where they can have that, if they successfully take that class, they can have the ticket expunged from their records. And that is back to what we are trying to do, is not be punitive, but to educate people and to change behavior. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think, Jim, you're
Jim, you might be muted. Still not hearing anything. Nope. Okay, I'll just go. Go ahead and throw my slideshow up there if you would. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Lee Erickson with the Tigard Police Department. For the last 6 years, I've had the pleasure of running our photo enforcement program, both as the traffic safety sergeant and now as a lieutenant. Gone through 2 implementation processes during that time frame, so hopefully there's some lessons to be learned from our story here as we go through it. Next slide, please. So just real quickly, we'll go over the history of our program from when we first started talking about it with our city council to where we're at today. Show you our current operations, show you some statistics, give you an example of the citation packet that is sent out to the defendants, and talk about our public awareness. I'm glad to see Grace and Steve talked about public awareness. I think that's a huge part of these programs that some people might overlook. And then we'll talk about data-driven decisions for the future planning. Next slide, please. So for us, we started in August of 2010, talking to our city council. They wanted to hear some information about these systems, and so we provided that. Fast forward 5 years to middle of 2015. They wanted some more information. They wanted studies on feasibility and actually operating the systems here and what that would look like for us. So we provided that. In the first part of 2017, we did a community survey, found that 60% of the community supported using these systems in Tigard. And then in 2018, we began our first request for proposal process. And through that, we identified our vendor and began system implementation. So this is where the work began. October of 2018 is when we signed that contract. But it wasn't until January of 2020 where the actual cameras started operating at our first intersection. Why did it take so long? We didn't know what we didn't know. So a big part of this is begin conversations with ODOT early. If you're thinking about doing these things, running these systems, talk to ODOT early, find out what they need, what they expect. That's what we didn't know. You have to get permission from ODOT if you're going to put any of these systems on a state-owned highway first, and then you have to get permits to actually do the construction. So talk to your regional ODOT folks first. They'll tell you what they need and how to go about doing it. March of 2020 is when we turned red light on. If anybody remembers March of 2020, that's when COVID first started having shutdowns across the state. So we didn't really know if what we were seeing in terms of volume of citations and events was what we were going to be seeing for the future, but that's when it turned on for us. July of 2020 is when we started using the photo red light cameras for speed enforcement. So like we've talked about already, there's a difference between photo radar and photo red light. Photo red light is at intersections. The statute allows for you to do both red light violations and speed enforcement at those intersections using the same systems. Photo radar is usually fixed locations outside of intersections, or it can be mobile in a van outside of intersections. We don't use photo radar here. We only using photo red light here. So for the last going on 4 years now, we've been doing enforcement for both speed and red light violations. And we've just wrapped up our second request for proposal process and are working through a new contract that we're looking to implement starting next month. Next slide, please. So we have cameras installed at 3 locations. They're all intersections on Pacific Highway, Highway 99W, running between I-5 and the south end of Tigard near King City. So the first intersection that we have is Southwest Pacific Highway at Hall Boulevard. With photo red light, you're looking at the approaches. So as the lane comes into the intersection, that's an approach. For this intersection, we have 3 approaches that we're using photo red light systems on. Both directions on Highway 99, and then one direction on Hall Boulevard. Next slide, please. The next intersection that went online for us was Pacific Highway at Durham Road. This is at the south end of Tigard near King City. There we have both directions on Highway 99W, north and southbound, but we don't have any other approaches being controlled there. Next slide, please. And our third location is Pacific Highway at Southwest 72nd Avenue. This is kind of between I-5 and Highway 217. And here we're doing northbound and southbound on Highway 99 only. Next slide. The reason we picked those 3 locations, traditionally they're hard intersections for us to put police officers in to do traffic enforcement. The volume of traffic on those intersections is really high throughout the day. They're really large intersections, and there's not a lot of good places nearby to actually affect a roadside traffic stop. So solutions like photo red light are great options when you have those really busy roads with lots of traffic and big complex intersections. So for us, the system we use uses radar and cameras. The radar detects where the vehicle is as it's approaching the intersection. It detects its speed. It runs it through an algorithm that decides that based upon the vehicle's location, the proximity to the intersection, and the phase of the light, it starts estimating whether or not that vehicle is going to run the red light or it's speeding. So it starts taking photographs and starts recording video as soon as the algorithm says to do so. All of that information gets, once the violation occurs, all that information gets digitized by our vendor. They run through and grab all the DMV records for the vehicle and the registered owner, compile it all together. They send it over to us. One of our sworn officers, typically one of our traffic officers, reviews that, agrees a violation occurs. We approve it. It goes back to the vendor. They print it out, they mail it, and then the defendant will receive the citation packet. Next slide, please. For us, we take at least 4 photos. So one will show the vehicle before it enters the intersection. That's that top left one there. Shows that the light is red and the vehicle has not yet entered the intersection, hasn't crossed the stop bar or the crosswalk. The second photo, which is the top right, shows that the vehicle has now entered the intersection. The light is still red, and that's where the violation has occurred. And then it captures a close-up of the driver and a close-up of the vehicle plate from the back. Next slide. In addition to the photos, it also captures a 12-second video, 6 seconds before the violation occurred and 6 seconds after the violation occurred. Jim, is this embedded or is this a PDF? Okay, all right, we'll skip over that. But yeah, you can see the violation as the vehicle enters the intersection all the way through to when it exits the intersection based upon the timing of that video. Next slide, please. For us, these are just some statistics through July of last year from Go Live. So for red light, we've seen a total of about 14,400 red light violations at our 3 intersections over that 3.5 year period. Next slide, please. And then for intersection speed, we've seen about 43,000 violations over that 3-year period from July 2020 to July 2023. So speed, you can expect, is about 3 times as many violations occurring as red light violations that you'll see at the intersections. That's what our experience shows us. Next slide, please. So this is an example of the citation packet that the defendant will receive. These are mailed out to the registered owner of the vehicle. So on there, they'll have the pictures that we're looking at. And then in the top in that yellow box is a link to the video that we look at as well, so that they can go and take a look at all that. It has basic program details, violation details as to the location, the vehicle that was captured, and who the officer is that was issuing the citation. And then just some directions on what to do on the back. Next slide, please. So the instructions there on the back of that letter, and then they'll, depending on where their vehicle is registered to, if it's to an individual or to a business, they'll either receive a certificate of innocence to an individual or a certificate of non-liability to a business. Certificate of innocence allows the registered owner to say, wasn't me. They sign it. They include a copy of the front and back of their driver's license, and that goes to the court, and the citation is dismissed without any further action. If it's a certificate of non-liability, that's to a company, like a taxi cab company or a rental car company. The company can either accept liability and pay the citation, or they can name the who was actually operating the vehicle at the time, and then we'll reissue the citation to whoever they name based upon the information they provide. Next slide, please. One thing to say about the certificates of innocence and non-liability, even though they're dismissed by the municipal court, they send them over to us. We'll review them, and the original officer, if determines that the person's not being truthful, we'll reissue those citations rather than just let them be dismissed by the court. So this is just a copy of the citation. It's modeled after the citations that are issued by our officers out on the roadside. So it has the same violation data and then instructions on the back on how to handle it through the court. Next slide, please. So public awareness, again, prior to turning these systems on and beginning to issue citations or warnings, it's required by statute that you provide public awareness that you're using these systems. So for us, prior to March 2020, we did a lot of stuff. So we did over 40 community events. We host traffic, or our public works folks host traffic fairs. So we were at those. We had our SROs go into the high school and talk to the high school kids because the Durham cameras near Tigard High School. We did lots of social media stuff. We purchased a time on a billboard along Pacific Highway near I-5. We had media interviews, local newspaper advertisements, radio interviews in both English and Spanish. And then we had video kiosks installed in City Hall lobby, the police department lobby, and the lobby at the Bridgeport Cinemas that had running notifications about the system. Next slide, please. And then we're strong advocates for transparency here. So our public awareness has continued to this day. So the violation data is included in the chief's dashboard that he presents to the city council monthly. We have it in our annual report. Every time we do a Citizens Academy or Community Academy, we have a section dedicated directly to photo enforcement. Anytime we can get in to talk to the Tiger Transportation Advisory Committee, we'll talk to them about it. Let's Talk Transportation forums, more media. Anytime somebody has interest in it, we'll be happy to put somebody, usually me, on camera or in an interview. We have a publicly available webpage that's constantly updated, and then we'll continue with our social media, including videos of near collisions that occur in these intersections. And we see monthly we'll have videos where crashes nearly occurred or crashes have occurred and are captured on these systems. Next slide, please. And we can skip over that one. Next one. So just some statistical information if you're looking for any support on why these systems are important. Department of Transportation, U.S. Department of Transportation shows that 56% reduction in all crash types and 48% reduction in injury crashes from these systems. The National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration had a couple studies out there. One showed that the systems don't cause crashes, but another one showed that, yeah, they might cause 15% increase in low impact rear end collisions, but that's against a 20 to 25% reduction in dangerous crashes such as head-on collisions or T-bone type crashes. And the Institute for Highway Safety also showed a significant reduction in all types of crashes and injury T-bone type crashes. Next slide. Those statistics were kind of borne out by what we saw. So doing an apple to apples comparison using ODOT's crash data from their website, we looked at the period before we turned the system on and the time that we turned it once we had them up and running. And we saw about a 70% reduction at 2 of our intersections, as well as a noticeable reduction in the intersections adjacent to where these systems were installed. So pretty significant stat there showing a 77% reduction. The one outlier is Durham Road. Unfortunately, there we're not allowed to enforce speed or right turn on red violations, just based upon what the crash data showed before implementation. So more to follow on that one, hopefully in the near future, but that's where we're at. Next slide. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jim. Thank you.
So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so fingers crossed that this is going to work. So we got about 14 minutes left on the program. Really appreciate this. I know this was a lot of volume of information, but again, you'll at least have recorded content and access to all of the presentations. So the first question, actually, it's popped up in chat, goes to Lieutenant Erickson. So if I understand your presentation, a company manages, maybe I should just let Aaron ask the question. That's probably the best thing.
Okay, Jim. Lieutenant Erickson, here's a question. Trying to make this simple after I sent it to Jim, the question, but I've got a D too. But the first one, A, is the way I think I understand is that a company, after the RFP process, all of that, trying to make it simple, manages your process. Law enforcement, B, law enforcement reviews it, sends it back to the company, and then C, then the company cites to the noted or into the noted court. Am I understanding that really brief of what you presented there?
Yeah, that's correct. So the company system captures the violation, all the data that's associated with it. They run the DMV records for us. All of that's digitized and sent over to us through a web interface. A sworn officer, or now a traffic agent that Grace talked about, reviews that, agrees that a violation occurred, because I still have to have somebody that can go into court and testify if the person wants to contest the violation. So they agree that the violation occurred, we approve it, then the company does have a print vendor that will mail out the actual citation packet.
I appreciate that. So here's D with that, Lieutenant Erickson, is that I'm a small city in Eastern Oregon. We contract with a local county. There's been pushback on this legislation because they didn't want to do all the work. But if we have a contract, then really they're just reviewing, and then it would come into our muni court if it got cited. Does that sound like a plausible way, instead of having, as you do there in Tiger, to full force? I'm trying to look how to manage it and still improve safety and accountability and responsibility.
Yeah, I would think so. I think if you were to hire the traffic enforcement agent, that'd be a way for you to directly control all of that. I would encourage you to talk to the court wherever the citations will be sent to ahead of time, because the volume of citations that you increases their workload, so they need to be part of that conversation early on.
Thank you.
I think we lost you again, Jim.
So Lieutenant Erickson, this is Aaron Palmquist again, waiting for Jim. One of the questions came in from Redmond PD. Does TBD pursue false swearing in if an offender is shown to provide an inaccurate cert of innocence?
To date, we have not. And the line in the sand that I've drawn for us is, if a person does that, they've gone through to trial, they were adjudicated guilty after sending that form and then being found guilty in open court. If they continue to do it after that point, I would have us go after them for perjury or false swearing. Part of the argument that can be made is the certificate of innocence the person could be misreading it to say, this is how I plead not guilty, and go to trial. So I think after they've been adjudicated, stood before the judge, been told the consequences of actually filling out that form and what it means, then I'd be more comfortable with us being able to prove a perjury or a false swearing.
Thank you. Jim, are you back on? If not, I'm going to read the next one. And I don't know if Lieutenant Erickson or somebody else from Portland, but you're on there, Lieutenant Erickson.
Yeah, so I'm on. So my question is, can people hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, Jim. So you
I
got
love the technology here. So this is cell phone time. So the next question was, what triggers a citation in terms of how many miles over the speed limit? And if I read statute or recall statute correctly, it's effectively 11 miles per hour or higher.
That's correct. Yeah, it has to be at least 11 miles an hour over the posted limit. For our system, we've gone a little bit beyond that just to provide a little bit of a cushion for the radar.
Okay, fabulous. So there's another question in here for the lieutenant. So does the police department pursue false swearing if an offender is shown to provide an inaccurate certification of innocence?
I believe I just answered that one, but if
Okay.
there's some follow-up to that, I'm more than happy to address it.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions that folks want to drop into chat or raise their hand? Matt Scales, go ahead.
Hey, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. Question real quickly about with respect to Tiger Municipal Court, McMinnville has a municipal court as well. Was there need to expand the days or added dates? And if so, how many to your municipal court?
There was, and even with expanding the amount of arraignment windows that folks can come in for their initial appearance, we still created a backlog of many weeks from that initial, increase in volume of citations. But yeah, they went from having they went to having dedicated days, about 2 days a week, and like 15-minute windows where they're having 25 citations scheduled for arraignment. So so even with, like I said, even with that, we created weeks of backlog. We finally worked through all that. But yeah, like our municipal court staff, they added, I think, 4.5 new positions to handle the amount of work that this created for them on the back end.
That's super. Hey, Steve, do you have anything to add possibly on that in terms of what the volume has been like or how you've been managing through the citations? I mean, you get 70,000 a year. That's a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And I just would really underscore what Lieutenant Erickson said, that working with the court on that, I mean, the sensitivity, even if they get to add staff, is that there's a lag between when this increase in citations happen and when they can hire folks. So there's kind of this very kind of challenging period when the citations go up and they're at limited capacity. I mean, again, I'm new to the position, so I can't speak. I'd be happy to kind of like come back and send something to you, Jim, that could be shared with the rest of the participants. But I just know that it's been a real challenge managing this with the courts, and also just the quality of the citation, making sure the citations that they get are enforceable. I mean, I think that's just one of the things that I would encourage cities that are thinking about adding this, is to really do their due diligence on the vendors and talk to other municipalities. And because if your vendor's doing anything wrong, the person who's going to feel that pain the most is someone at the courts, because they're going to be receiving things that are not right. That's just more workload for them. So I kind of dodged your question, but I'll be happy to talk with my team and get back to you with more information.
Yeah, no, I think generally it's obviously there's a sensitivity, and the more you work with the court, the more smooth the process is going to end up going. Grace, I know anything that you want to add, because I suspect you folks have taken a serious look at this on what implementation is going to look like.
That's correct. And again, I gave a variation of this presentation at the OCA conference with the city attorneys, and Sherwood gave the same advice to really work closely with your municipal court, because Sherwood also had to increase its days for operation to accommodate the increased workload for muni court staff. And for us, we have an internal communication group for figuring out photo enforcement. So that's how we keep the lines of communication open. And that also helps smooth over any friction on workloads and such because we are open with each other and we communicate clearly and regularly, and that has helped smooth over issues.
Okay, that's helpful. One thing I was just thinking about, and Grace, tell me if I'm wrong here real quick. So this is kind of getting at maybe trying to help some of the smaller cities that would have to partner with the county as an example. So there's also the opportunity under existing statute for multiple cities to come up with an agreement. Is that fair? Or, I mean, how does, I mean, I'm just kind of looking for other structural ways for the smaller communities and stuff to add this as a safety element in here.
I mean, under state statutes, you know, you are able to enter into IGAs for any number of services that you may need to work with others on. So it would be up to the jurisdictions to determine how best to achieve those goals through any of those types of agreements. But, you know, I don't know them, and so I can't speak as to the specifics.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. So Dave Bergman, next up.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question for Portland or Tigard. The revenue from the tickets that are paid, is that covering the cost of the additional staff that was required?
I can speak to the city of to the PBOT side of that. I can't speak to the Portland Police Bureau side of that. So I would say yes on the PBOT side of it, but I don't have a strong window into the Portland Police budget and how that impact has been. Lieutenant, you have anything to add?
Yeah, for Tigard, it has not. We front loaded all of our expenses, so the contract, personnel. We actually had to do some remodeling of the actual city hall facilities. So all that was front loaded. But because COVID hit right as we went live, a lot of cases were pushed back because we couldn't even get folks in to come into court, and so they were never adjudicated. They just had to be dismissed. So we have not recovered programmatic costs as yet.
Thank you.
Dave, I didn't fully answer your question. I think that the thing that I should note is that with our traffic safety diversion class, that is another source of revenue to cover the costs of our program. So we contract with, when you take that class, a violator pays, it's less than the citation, but it's a significant amount for the class, and then a portion of that cost goes back to the city. So we have two revenue streams to help to recoup costs, both a portion of the citation and then the class itself.
Okay, got it.
Oh, that's a great question. I think one thing that's important when we've been lobbying on this, and you know, the number of years it took us to convince the legislature this was important, is we never looked at this as a revenue generator. This was purely focused on public safety, neighborhood safety, and making sure that we, you know, reduce those speeds in those high crash corridors and stuff. So this can be an expensive, you know, intensive cost for the infrastructure in place, and, you know, some of the human requirements for just the steps that you have to go through to issue citations and adjudicate process. So that's certainly a consideration that is just, unfortunately, we're not going to get much help from the state to do anything else other than that. So any other questions? We've got 1 minute left. Okay. I am not seeing anything. This was super. I really appreciate Grace, Steve, and Lieutenant Erickson's involvement in this panel today. You know, there's going to be obviously more questions that will come up. I'm hopeful that I'll be able to direct them in the right places, and maybe if I can ask Grace, Stephen, Lieutenant Erickson, if you're open to maybe some questions that may arise here in the coming months, that would be super helpful, because again, I am a lobbyist. I can move stuff through the session. I can kill things, but do not ask me to try to implement photo speed radar by any stretch. Okay. I'm seeing heads nodding. Yes, we're good to go.
Yes.
Again, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Everybody enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And like I said, we'll get this information out here by the end of the week.
Thank you all.